Hello there! My name is Sherry Lefkowitz. I'm a senior instructional coach at Quill.org, and in this video I'll be demonstrating Quill's brand new tool, Quill Evidence, for you. Each Quill Evidence activity, which is designed for 9th through 12th grade students, takes about 15 to 20 minutes to complete. Students will read a text focused on a global issue like climate change or migration, and then summarize a key idea from the text by completing 3 sentence stems. As students write, they'll get immediate feedback that guides them through revision. They'll get feedback that helps them strengthen their logical reasoning, clarify their ideas, and increase the specificity of their evidence. And they'll get feedback on their grammar, spelling, and punctuation. Let's take a look. So first, students will have 4 onboarding pages. The first is this page, which will show them the 3 main actions they will take in the activity. Number 1, read and highlight a passage. Number 2, write sentences based on the passage they read. And number 3, revise based on feedback. The next pages will take students through 3 good-to-knows, some expectations we want to set. The first one is to let students know that they will not receive a grade or score for this activity. We are emphasizing here that this tool's goal is to help them improve, not to evaluate them. On the next page, students will learn that the tool uses a feedback bot. This is a simplified way of letting students know that this tool, though it might seem like it at times, is not actually a human teacher. So that means there will be errors. It's very important students know this going in so they don't feel really frustrated when this happens. And here, students will be reminded of something that we believe at Quill quite deeply. All writers revise. We hope that our tool encourages students to see revision as integral to writing, as a positive experience informed by the just right amount of feedback. At this point, students will begin the activity. Let's press start. Students will read through the passage, and as they read, they'll highlight 2 sentences that describe the importance of the 2014 pulse flow. They'll click Done, and they'll be told, great, now take a moment to reflect on the sentences you highlighted, encouraging them to take a pause and really take in the gist of the text that they have just read. They'll click Next, and they'll be told, nice, keep going, and they'll see that they're moving on to step 2. The directions will say, use information from the text to finish the sentence. Remember to put the response in your own words. The students will be asked to complete the first stem. The 2014 pulse flow was considered successful because, let's say they write, it filled the river up. They'll click Get Feedback, and they'll be told, it's true that the pulse flow filled the river with water. Now be more specific. What positive effect did it have in the area? So the pulse flow did fill the river with water, but the passage gives more concrete evidence than that. So we'll push them for more specificity here. So at this point, the student might write, because that year, the number of birds living along the river increased by 20%. They'll click Get New Feedback, and they're told, you have the right idea. Now rewrite the idea using your own words. Think about other ways you could say the same thing. So this response is using strong evidence, but the sentence comes word for word from the text. So the plagiarized text is highlighted for students on the left. And now the student has the opportunity to paraphrase that idea. And let's say they do that writing, it led to the bird population increasing by 20%. They'll click Get New Feedback, and they're told, nice work. You used information from the text to explain why the pulse flow was considered successful. The text is intentionally written to include multiple possible correct pieces of evidence for each stem. At this point, they'll move on to the but stem. The 2014 pulse flow was considered successful, but, and the student might write, it was too expensive. Now notice that I'm deliberately making some errors in spelling and punctuation here. I'm going to click Get Feedback, and I'm told, clear your response and try again. What were some of the problems with the pulse flow? Check that your response only uses information from the text. So what the student wrote, that the pulse flow was too expensive, that may be true, but the passage doesn't say anything about the cost of the pulse flow. We want students to use evidence from the text in their answers. So the feedback reframes the stem as a question and reminds students to only use information from the text. Notice, by the way, that the student didn't get feedback on the spelling or punctuation error. That feedback doesn't come until the ideas are in order. We don't want students focused on correcting small errors when they still need to revise their ideas. So at this point, the student might delete what they wrote, as they were recommended to do, and try, "It was too expensive," and "not everyone liked it." They'll click Get New Feedback, and they're told, "Clear your response and try again. What were the long-term effects of the pulse flow? Look at the yellow underlined text for ideas." So since this is the second response like this in a row, the student is told to clear their response and is asked a more direct question, and the relevant evidence is highlighted as a scaffold for them. So at this point, the student might write, "But the river dried up after 2 months." They'll click Get New Feedback, and they're told, "Nice work. You used information from the text to show a contrasting or surprising idea about the pulse flow." Then they'll move on to their last stem, the SO stem, and they have the 2014 pulse flow was considered successful. So, and they might write, "Let's do it again." They'll get this feedback. Giving a command often works well for persuasive writing, but the goal in this activity is to express an idea or fact from the text. Instead of starting with an action word, try starting your response with the name of a person, group, or thing from the text. So with "so," we often see responses that give a command, an opinion, or make a prediction. While that may certainly be appropriate in another writing context, in this tool, in Quill Evidence, students need to use evidence from the text. So the feedback is going to help them to do that. So the student revisits the text, clears their response, and writes, "So they're planting trees along the river." They get the feedback. "That's true. Now be more specific. What are scientists doing based on the success of the 2014 pulse flow?" So it is true that restoration work in the Delta continues, but the text doesn't say that the pulse flow led conservation groups to plant more trees. So this isn't a strong "so" response. Therefore, the feedback pushes students to be more specific and find stronger "so" evidence. Student might clear their response and write, "So they want to continue this method." They're told, "Keep revising. Try to be even more specific. What happened in 2021 due to the success of the first pulse flow? Look at the yellow underlined text for ideas." So since this is the second response in a row that doesn't mention the second pulse flow, the student is going to receive a more specific question and highlighting of the relevant portion of the text. At this point, they might clear their response and write, "So scientists," being more specific, "are going to release another pulse flow in 2021. The feedback says, "Revise your work. Update the form of your action word to show that a second pulse flow already happened in 2021. So according to the passage, the pulse flow was released in May 2021. So responses that say that they're going to will get this feedback directing them to switch out their action word to more accurately represent the evidence from the text. So the student might replace "are going to release" with "released." Now, notice that for this sentence, I'm about to use up all 5 of my attempts. You can see that right here. So why is there a limit on attempts? Well, the idea is to avoid a situation where students are revising and getting very frustrated. 5 attempts seems to be a sweet spot for our current tools, but we don't know if it's the right number for this tool yet. That's something we'll definitely want your feedback on. Now, if on their 5th try for the stem, and this goes for any of the stems, the student still didn't write a strong response, they would have gotten the feedback, "Nice effort, you worked hard to make your sentence stronger." But here, the student did get to a strong response on their 5th try, so when they click Get New Feedback, they're brought to this page. Here, they'll be celebrated for revising and see the number of revisions that they made. They'll also see a reminder that the activity isn't graded and the goal was to get practice. We want to recognize the hard work and thought that they've put into revising and emphasize the value of that process. That brings us to the end of this demo of Quill Evidence. Thanks for watching.